Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. I don't know. We have many people from different countries. We have different panelists from different countries. So some of them is coming online early morning from United States, someone in Dubai, someone in Istanbul, in Finland, from Europe. Thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome to what promises to be a mind-expanding discussion on how Web3, Metaverse, and NFTs are reshaping human destiny. My name is Atashkar, the co-founder of Seed.Photo, and I have the distinct pleasure of being your moderator today. In the last few years, term of Web3, Metaverse, and NFTs have been thrown from every corner of tech groups into mainstream news awareness everywhere, whether it's art, finance, social interaction, or even the concept of ownership. Really? Are we on the brink of creating new parallel world where our digital persona, interact, trade, and even independent lives gonna be different? Or how is blockchain technology supporting this shift from Web 2 to Web 3? Or why should I care? Is it that important? Let's talk about all positive and negative side of it. Today, we are joined by an incredible lineup of thought leaders, pioneers, and artists who will help us explore these questions and much more. I'm gonna ask all the panelists how they are using inside their firms or how they are seeing across the industry NFT and Metaverse is getting adopted. As always, ladies first. Anita, give us a brief introduction of yourself and tell us how do you see NFT evolving beyond these territories?
So good afternoon from me from Dubai, and thank you, Alex, so much for the invitation to join this webinar with these amazing co-panelists of mine. It's a true pleasure to be here, and regards from Dubai. So my name is Anita Kalergis, and I'm also known as the Crypto Granny, which obviously tells already a couple of things of me. So I am an actual grandmother. I am 60 years old, and I have been involved in crypto and blockchain and all the rest buzzwords that you just listed since 2017. I'm a PR and communications manager for Expresso, which is a fintech company with the PSP application payment solution provider. And I'm also as a strategic advisor for an NFT project called Syntopia. And my background is in PR, in marketing, and in sales. So I have no tech background myself. And that's why
Anita, I think your voice is a bit cutting now. Yeah, okay.
She went virtual.
Like, yeah, we have. Yeah, you are back now. You are back now. Come.
Okay. Yes.
Continue.
Disconnect. Yeah. So since 2017, I've been extremely curious about all the emerging technology, solutions and ideas, and of course, one of the main things for me as Crypto Granny since day one has been to understand how and where can we use these NFTs, for instance, that you mentioned, and anyone coming from non-tech background, if you wish, obviously understands that there's nothing straightforward or simple in that. So I would say that what I see and where I see the biggest opportunities for NFTs, aside everything related to art, is maybe in some very hands-on usage, as when it comes to, for instance, ticketing or access to various events, whether those are music or sports or even online events like this one here. So the black market of ticketing, for instance, we possibly would be able to solve with the help of NFT and smart contracts behind that. Of course, one of the big issues that I think we are globally still discussing and facing is related to education, and especially like the professionalism of people. So there are fake doctors and fake professors and fake I don't know what. So I could imagine that NFTs as proving or verifying the authenticity of this certificate or education would be one of those things that are very, down to earth, understandable, and really, for me, represent the real use cases or real world use cases. And then taking from there, coming to the digital ownership of an artwork or anything of the kind, which honestly I believe for most of us is a bit challenging to really get your head around and understand the real value of it. But in the end of the day, I do believe that once you for the first time become an NFT owner of something that you really want and like, and here I'm referring to my very first NFT ever that I bought from the Syntopia drop on the 16th of August, where we dropped 3,000 pieces, and by the way, sold out everything. I cannot describe the excitement and the delight of owning an actual NFT and holding it, even though just now I'm not really sure what I'm going to do about it, but I'm certain that I will find something, nice enough for me. And then again, of course, the project itself is adding value to these NFTs. So just a few things coming from Granny as where I see the future of NFTs, other than purely in the art and artistic space, which is a lot discussed today.
Great, thank you so much. Christian, introduce yourself to us, but at the same time, what Anita was saying seems that we need a huge legislation way to go. So tell us what legislative safeguards should be considering to ensure all of this.
Yeah, thank you so much, Alex. I'm totally with Anita, and just to have some words about myself, I'm the international ambassador to the European Blockchain Association, and what sounds pretty boring, that we are basically the regulatory advisors and the policymakers, supporters for governments and semi-governmental entities. A lot of people say, well, this must be a boring job. It's actually not, because it keeps evolving, it keeps changing, and we exactly have to cope with these legal safeguards that you were talking about. So we were very, very early helping set up the Liechtenstein Blockchain Act, which now is used as a standard framework for a lot of governments, to a certain percentage at least. And it holds everything, but it doesn't regulate everything. So there is a local or regional legislation that comes on top of this Liechtenstein Blockchain Act, with some or most of the governments take as a basis. It's interesting to see that if you speak to so many countries and to so many different entities, even within one country, that they're sometimes a bit, sometimes not at all on the same page, while we're talking about the same topic, in this case blockchain. But we also help regulate the EU AI Act, and when it comes to digital assets as well. And funny enough is, being sort of like the speedboat to the European Commission, we help set up the first idea as a guardrail, as you said, how we would tackle this from a very practical point of view. I mean, regulation for regulation's sake is what obviously is what the politicians like. We don't like that so much, because it has to be practical. It has to rule daily business. but it shouldn't stop us from business. And while we, for example, with the EU AI Act, put up some suggestions how to set this up in a proper way, politicians turn it upside down. And they said, well, thank you for the advice, but we take it differently. And you go, why? And how sane this is, Nick, I guess you can tell a story about it. How sane this is, you see in the US. Basically, if you write the word crypto and you're at the R or at the P, you're in jail already. So because it's just like ruling in the wrong sort of way, hindering business, so to speak. And I've written a book about the metaverse, which is a playbook about the metaverse, not so much a marketing book, but it's 150 use cases from 25 industries. So if you're from some of those industries, you would use that book and see like how differently tackle other, maybe even competitors, NFTs, the metaverse, virtual platforms, and so on. And I just released the last book about NFTs, which is a basic book for beginners. And the funny thing is, we in our bubble talk about NFTs, non-fungible token. I guess some developer must have made up that term. But why don't we just call it digital assets for the basis that it is about? Like if you take photography, like the picture is a digital asset. Technically spoken, it might be a non-fungible token, but let's just make it a digital picture of the year 2023 with all the advantages and maybe some disadvantages, instead of like bringing it way too much into technicalities. That's what politicians like. That's what politicians try to put a cover above some things. And we just try to make it very, very transparent, like the blockchain's main advantages is about, for NFTs, for the metaverse, for digital assets, for all the emerging tech there is. And I think this is what we should do, talking about the safeguards and the guardrails that you talk about. They have to be there because everybody wants to be in a trustful environment. On the other hand, it shouldn't regulate it to death. So you basically cannot use a great technology that there is now.
Thank you so much. For me to add a point to what you were saying, when I was in London like 4 weeks ago, I had a meeting with a couple of former FCA officers, and I opened the discussion about NFT, and then they told me, "Oh, don't mention that word. We don't call it NFT anymore." So what do you call it then? So you can just call it digital collectible asset. That's the only thing we love. That's the only thing which is completely legal in UK, but not NFT. So, okay, so we have to completely revise it. Thanks for that note. Let's move to VESA. You as an Web3 artist, actually what I remember, you are the first Web3 artist I remember personally. So tell us a bit about the ownership. Do you really think that the whole idea of Web3 and NFT is really altering our destiny for a new understanding of ownership?
Oh, absolutely it is. And thanks, Alex. Pleasure to be with old friends, good friends, and newer friends. And this is indeed a very exciting topic. And I'll approach it by telling you something quite personal, which is that I was first a filmmaker, and I was educated to be a film director. And I started my professional career already in 1999. And that was right at the cusp of when things were turning digital. So editing became digital, and you started to shoot in digital and all that kind of stuff. And there was a big war in between film and digital and what's considered a real film and what you can, all that stuff. So the first year, the 10 years of my career, I dealt with digital film, digital photography, and many kind of the editing tools. And now, even before digital photography, I became more proficient at Photoshop. So Photoshop taught me how to take photographs, essentially, and I did it the reverse way around in one way. And then when I hopped into becoming a contemporary artist, what I did is that I started body painting on people, and then photographing as these inner transformations were going on in these human beings. And then I painted and photographed the paintings, and sometimes macro photography, in order to achieve like these massive brush strokes. I only needed to do a small thing and then use a macro lens in order to have this illusion of something very, very big happening. So I could play about with the trick photography and all these kinds of things. And when I saw the first image in front of me, I realized that I had something new, because back then, 15 years ago, no one was doing anything similar. But then I ended up having quite a lot of issues with the art world, because when they were asking me, where's my oil original, I had to say, well, it's a digital, there are various different kinds of physical copies that I do, but the original is actually a digital file, to which, to my dismay, many times the answer was, well, you're not a real artist, was the sort of quote thing, but it was an economical one, because they couldn't sell the original, therefore they thought that I'm a seller of copies, which is in one way true, but let's say a little bit discouraging at the time. And this is what led for me to, when I finally understood what Bitcoin was in 2017, I realized that this is immediately not only an important movement for people to understand what cryptocurrency is, but in terms of the technology, it'll finally provide me on what to do with my 300 digital originals that I had made over the last decade before it. So it was a significant moment for me. And of course, there were about 5 of us artists in crypto art who I would consider to be professional artists, who essentially generated the whole movement of crypto art. And I'm very privileged to be a part of the first wave of it. And that led to NFTs in 2018, even though there were some NFTs before it. But in order to make sense of this a little bit for people, I've realized that a couple of things are crucial. We live in a meme culture. And once a meme takes a hold, it just keeps going, and it takes a long time before we can unravel something that we've learned, so to speak. So computers, for the longest of time, ever since their inception, we've identified computers as things that are very good at replicating things and very good at distributing those things all over the world now. So now anything that we feel is computer generated or everyone can see on their display is considered valueless. It's like the sand in Dubai or the leaves here in the trees or whatever it is. It's very hard to put a scarcity or a value on top of something like that. But if you consider now that you can say that you can download a picture of a Bitcoin, and then you can try to get that, whatever, $27,000 it's worth with just that picture of a Bitcoin, then you soon realize that the protocol underneath it and the hash and how the thing functions is a very real thing, and how you identify whether you have an actual Bitcoin or whether you have a picture of a Bitcoin. So much in a similar kind of way, like the Mona Lisa, we know is a unique one-off. It's in the Louvre. So if you, everyone has a picture of it. Many dorm rooms have it on their walls. Many have them as their desktops, all of this kind of thing. But what you have is a certain protocol, how to know that this is the real Mona Lisa located here, and this is the proof, and so forth. So now we have to reverse the meme and go back a little bit in order to understand that now through this technology, the very same one that verifies Bitcoin to be an authentic Bitcoin or not, we can have digital assets. And this could be art, this can be virtual real estate, this can be experiences, all these plethora of digital ownership we can showcase through this technology. And I really love what Christian was saying, and how people are actually saying that we don't want to call it NFT anymore. And this is what I desperately tried to fight the whole of the way up until here, so that people wouldn't do shady things with them, this pump and dump market and all of this kind of garbage with NFT to soil the name, because the actual technology is very, very important underneath it. And I love it. I think it's world transforming. It's essential for us to do the digital transformation and asset ownership with this technology. But to say that it has the shadow side is the kind of games that people played with it very early on. And for example, my gallerist, Thomas Cermak from the Cermak Eisencraft Gallery, the leading gallery in Czech Republic, it took 10 hours of conversations with this guy in order for me to try and help him understand that this is not just money laundering, criminality, or pump and dumps or some garbage. And this has a little bit to do with the first collectors also being sort of crypto nerds. And I say that very lovingly, I'm one of them. But they didn't have a background in art, so they played their own game, and the fine art world played their own game. And now I've been trying to kind of unify the best of the legacy fine art world with the best of the new technology, let's call it digital assets, to come together so that we can start to have serious collectors who take this with the amount of respectability that it actually has when it's done right, to come into the sphere to really support the businesses that are doing it right, as well as the real creators who are doing it right, because they deserve it. Like some of them, like myself, have been in the trenches for 15 years with this stuff. And this is why we were despairing when we saw some of those things that we didn't really like so much what were happening from the beginning side of the thing. So hopefully that didn't take too much time.
Yeah.
But there you have it.
That was great. Perfect. Thank you so much. That was great. Nick, what time is it there now? You are in US now, right?
It's it's 6:20 a.m.
It's 6 a.m. That's very early. Thanks for joining us. Nick, you are in United States, the hottest spot when we talk about legislation, legality, all these SEC issues, the headaches that we have from SEC every single week. How do you see NFT and Metaverse collectively affecting the social contract, including governance and community engagement in the future?
Yeah, what a great question. Let me start by, first of all, saying thank you for having me, Alex, and hi to everybody on the panel and everyone listening, both live and on the video. A few words about myself. So my name is Nick Kalyani. I'm based in Silicon Valley in Mountain View, California, and I'm the founder of Nifty Dreams DAO for artists. There's about 4,000 artists with a mission to make it possible for every artist in the world to have a sustainable income through their art. So I've spent the past 18 months talking to literally over 1,500 artists at this point, have organized lots of events all over the world, including trekking through the remote villages of the Amazon rainforest in Argentina and Paraguay to talk to indigenous artists to figure out how Web3 and digital collectibles can help create this sustainable model for income. New thing in my life is a couple of weeks ago, I also taken on the lead of Vitruvio, which is a blockchain exclusively for creators, because I'm frustrated with the fact that every other protocol that's out there right now treats NFT as this equal for all domains, which is not the case. Art and creators have very unique needs that are not addressed by NFTs at all in the horizontal sense. In fact, if you look at the current prevailing standards, they do the absolute bare minimum needed and don't address intellectual property requirements, royalties, authenticity, and a whole host of other things. And so I've essentially decided to solve that with Vitruvio, a blockchain. We have a community of about 17,000 people at this point, and we are about to launch. So getting back to your question about sort of the regulatory climate in the United States with regard to crypto, etc. Look, it's always been the case that legislation completely is behind when it comes to technology. I live in Silicon Valley. We see that all the time. We invent something, and it takes years for things to catch up. I don't think we can hold that back. In fact, I feel like a lot of people who are in crypto, who are legitimate users, want and crave that kind of legislation, but it's slow to come. And so what's happening as a result is that the United States is being slightly left behind. In fact, my DAOs, I'm incorporating them in Dubai because I find that the regulatory climate and the legal climate is fantastic. That doesn't mean that the United States will lag in terms of the technology. I think we'll still evolve, and there's a lot of entrepreneurs there, such as myself. But in terms of regulation, it's going to take a while for things to catch up, just because with a lot of countries right now, the government's kind of divided, and it's very hard to pass any kind of legislation. The other problem is that we as an ecosystem, as an industry, don't do ourselves any service. We, in years now, almost a decade, have done little to improve the user experience of crypto. We have not created the bridge from Web 2 to Web 3. We just automatically assume that it's a black and white shift. It's not. It's the gray area. There's a bridge that needs to happen so we can gently lead users over. And that applies not only just to the software, but it applies to business also, how we handle the business of cryptocurrencies, etc. That hasn't happened. And so I don't think regulators and government are to blame so much as ourselves. We ought to take responsibility for the fact that we have failed miserably to achieve the goals that any new technology should achieve. It needs to embrace, it needs to be user-friendly. It needs to not have this bro culture, which permeates it. Like, where's the gender equity in crypto right now? It doesn't exist, right? So there's lots of people working on this to fix this, but it's going to take some time. And I believe the regulation will catch up when we start doing what is right and getting crypto mass adoption there. Like, look at NFTs, right? The media has this popular narrative of it's just JPEGs. Well, guess what? It's actually true, because we haven't done the work to go beyond and make those assets actually valuable. Right now, NFTs are just random numbers on the blockchain. If you look at the detail of it, the actual asset is off-chain and it is not durable. It's brittle. So these are the kinds of things we need to fix. And that's what I'm trying to fix with the new blockchain, is address all these problems and be embracing, so that we can get museums, galleries, and the top art collectors, the top artists in the world to feel safe that, yes, here's an organization or here's a protocol that's actually heeding the needs of creators all over the world, including, visual artists, musicians, filmmakers, authors, etc. So I am working with a large community now to solve that problem with Vitruvio Chain.
Okay, thank you so much. I personally believe that one of the reasons that the sensitivity of this NFT and crypto is too much when you come to SEC and FCA and all of those regulators is that maybe, this is my personal opinion, maybe blockchain and cryptocurrency is the closest concept to asset, the closest concept to money. Maybe because the narrative between them are so narrow that they are too sensitive about it. Because we saw that era of legislation in many different technology revolutionary ages, which is already passed. But it seems that this time it's more sensitive for them. Maybe because it's too complex for them to understand. Maybe it's too close to the idea of asset management. I don't know. Anita, I know you are attending to so many webinars and panels and summits around the world, and I'm sure you are really connected to many people inside the box. Tell us a bit about that. How do you feel about the future?
Well, I have to start saying that, Nick, you just got a new big fan. It's exactly as you said. And this is one of the things, obviously, I have been saying also quite some time, because I come from the non-tech understanding background. We've done so poorly ourselves in making sure that we build the bridge towards the regulators and the lawmakers. And even though we should be proud of ourselves as the community of crypto and blockchain, because we are the ones who said from day one to the regulators, guys, let's get together. Let's discuss this. We don't want the money laundering. We don't want the criminal acts. We don't want any of that. But we want a fair chance with this amazing technology we have at hands. So yes, Nick, everything you said, I fully agree with you. And now, yes, since 2017, I've been around quite a lot, actually. And I have the advantage that being the old woman who doesn't understand tech. So everyone is very open and relaxed in the discussions with me, regardless whether they are the ones who do understand how or are playing a role in all of this, or the ones who are just curiously looking maybe from a side and wondering, should I join or should I not join? So for me, it doesn't matter what, and I call them buzzwords, because that's what the media takes on and starts to play around with the words and create these headlines that are actually hurting us more than helping us. And then we are not really working in the same way and as hard to correct the false headlines stating all this stuff that surely we can show and prove that is not correct. But what you need, and what I would say, that the tools are obviously have the curiosity to start with, and then open mind. Be open to all the news out there, and reach out to the people, and be part of the discussions, whether they are online or on site. Ask questions, demand answers you understand. My all-time favorite question is why, and I'm very good at that. But that usually brings you to the core of what you want to learn. And once you start understanding, then I would just say that, be brave enough and ask help if you need, and test and try for yourself. Log in and go visit the metaverse, or purchase a little bit of some crypto, or maybe an NFT. And obviously this is not the financial advice, but I needed that in order to understand what happens, what does it mean, how does it happen, how does it relate to the world I've known for 60 years, what is this new, and what changes. And then once you are there, then just be very honest with the mirror, and decide for yourself, is this something for me? Do I actually want to take an active role in this? And what would that be? And then if you decide that, no, this is not for me, that is also okay, as long as the decision was made by you. So it's very important for the development and for the future, for all of us, and for all of this, that the people who are involved, regardless who they are, they believe in it. They understand even a little bit what it's about. And of course, as discussed already here, understand the added value that it will bring, and also how it will fix the existing problems we unfortunately have. So we are all aiming to create a brighter and fairer and better future for the kids and grandkids like mine. So I hope they get to live a better future with the help of technology, but we all need to play some kind of role in that. And it starts from us understanding what we are dealing, and if the pre-consumptions are there, the hesitancy is there. So that's why I would call everyone to be, really open-minded and curious, and give the technology a chance, and then decide for yourself. Don't listen to anyone, not us, not your neighbor, not your parents or your kids, or your best friend for that matter, but listen to them all, but then make the decision yourself, because then it's true, and then you are valuable to us if you choose to join, because you actually believe in that. So those are the ingredients I have collected through these 5-6 years, and I think it's still valid, and at least that's what it is for me, and that's how I see all of this. And I just tell everyone, join this fun revolution. It's fun here.
Great. Thank you so much. That award was amazing. Brighter future. All of us gonna be here. All of us gonna fight for it, for a brighter future. And let's move a bit through the legislation. Christian, when it's come to data and privacy protection, we know that European Commission is one of the biggest one who find all the big giants, finding Google, finding Apple, finding Facebook with a big amount of money, that they breaching the data and privacy of the users. Do you think that the journey that we have in front of us for Web3 is going to solve that issue, or it's going to make it better?
It's a very difficult question. I think right now, the EU obviously is well known to be a large proponent for data privacy and for all these data regulation things. Let me just jump back to Anita, because Anita said one very valid thing, and that is education. If you don't educate people and they don't use it, the EU doesn't have to care about data privacy because nobody uses it. So we have to educate the people first. What is this all about? Anita, you're absolutely right. And we have to educate them in a very easy to understand way. So let's not start with NFTs, maybe explain what is the abbreviation about, non-fungible tokens. But let's not start with NFTs, but with, if you're going to a supermarket and you're buying a liter of milk, like, how do you do this? And then people go like, yeah, I take this from the shelf. I pull out my wallet. Okay, wallet is a cool thing. We have a wallet here as well in the Web3 world. So you basically in the old world, in the even non-digital world, but also in the digital world, you can compare so much to this very new world, like digital world, digital squared world, or Web3 world. So educate people in what's happening, and what is that unifies creative people. It's curiosity, and everybody's curious about their creative business, their creative hobbies, but basically going deeper into their creativeness and finding new ways to transform, to monetize maybe their business. Like VESA is a great example for that. To really dig deep and try to understand what's this new world about, because I'm curious. Photographers are, video directors are, painters are, and even lawmakers are, in a certain way at least. And coming back to your question, Alex, data privacy, the EU, and everything that has to do with it, you have to rule certain guardrails, obviously, to prevent those scams and those pump and dumps VESA was talking about in the future in a certain way. But on the other hand, you have to give the freedom for creativity. Like if we rule creativity out, we don't need to discuss anything. We don't need to discuss AI. We don't need to discuss Web3. If creativity doesn't happen, if people are not educated, people are sticking with the old analog world, which is sort of not possible these days. But you know where I'm coming from. And the ruling of data privacy and the ruling of all the privacy issues in general, especially talking about the EU, is a disaster, to say the least, if we start from the very first point, because they basically put all the obstacles on a topic, so the topic is not interesting anymore. And then they basically take away some of the obstacles bit by bit, but they don't start from scratch, building one obstacle at a time by means of regulations, but they basically put 100% regulation on it, so it doesn't feel any good. It doesn't feel any interesting from the very beginning. And I must say, Anita is in Dubai right now. I'm traveling back and forth to Dubai as well. One must praise the leadership of Dubai and of the UAE in general. And Nick, you can say a word about that as well, because it is the other way around. Let's make things possible. I mean, Dubai has a ministry of possibilities. I don't know any country in the world that has it, than rather Dubai. So they start from zero. Of course, they're trying to safeguard and to guardrail things, and also to hold up the reputation for Dubai as a flawless, as a country of a high reputation. But it's the other way around, and it's a mindset that brings them the other way around. And that's what I mean by visionary leadership. Let's enable people to come to Dubai. Let's make it easy for them to open the business. Let's give them guardrails, but not too many. And in the EU and also the US, and Nick, that's also a topic for you. And in the US, it's starting from, where should I actually start? Where can I find my niche? Because everything is over-regulated, and there is no business to do, and there is too much risk for me to get in prison tomorrow for just opening a business in the wrong field, or at least being sued by the SEC and then going out of business. So guardrails, yes. Legislature, yes. But please make it in a practical way, make it in a usable way, and just don't try to prevent business. Don't try to take creativity away, because this is what we need these days.
Okay, thank you so much. That was a great insight. VESA, let's get a bit far from this legalities or technicalities. Let's talk about a bit of marketing. You as an artist, you understand all the suffering journey of all the artists when they tried their best and no one admiring them. So do you really think that Web3 and all of this NFT, especially Metaverse, can help the artists to showcase their artworks in a different way?
That's a brilliant question. And I've seen it happen to many, many artists that, like, for example, there's a guy, Carlos Marcial, I think, if I don't get it right, pardon me, but I think he's from Mexico. And he's a father of 3 kids, I believe, and his career was going absolutely nowhere. And he was struggling in every kind of way. And then he discovered NFTs at a fairly early stage. And I think he's now opening up many opportunities to other artists in South America and Middle America and kind of impoverished places in general, because the whole idea what got me into it to begin with was that I heard that there's about 3.5 billion people in the world without a bank account. And it's a lot to do with how we verify people's existence through their address and so forth. And they're completely unable to hop on board this kind of the traditional banking system and to have any financial services whatsoever. And through a mobile phone, all of a sudden you have a whole bank with Bitcoin or crypto in your pocket. So I kind of started realizing that, hold on a minute, a lot of people have access to mobile phones or some sort of creativity and these kinds of things. And one of the projects that we're actually doing with Dr. Norisa, who's this wonderful Thai lady, she's involved with real estate and a bunch of other things and in this kind of virtual forefront as well, is that her actual passion in life is to work with these orphans in Thailand. And she wants to retire and take care of these orphanages. And I said, well, how about if we come up with this sort of thing that you show them, the kids, a little bit of my stuff, of what I've done, then let's give them some crayons and paper and things so that they can do, and we'll select like 20 of them. And then a professional animator is going to animate these pieces to come to life. And then we're going to put them on the international marketplace to let's see if they would sell. And if and when they sell, the kid who's done the drawing actually gets a portion of the benefit, and then the orphanage gets a portion of the benefit, and then, however else it's split, but at least those two. And then you could have different kinds of incentivization programs of how to allow these kids who are in these heartbreaking conditions. Let's say you're 5 years old and in Thailand without parents, your prospects aren't the best. So if your financial future will be kind of in your own hands ever since you're a small child, what does that do to your autonomy, your dignity, your future prospects, to all of these kinds of things? And this is really, those kinds of use cases for NFTs are the very polar opposite of what you'd be used to seeing in the field, and these kind of, or whatever, cartoons and their access to silly golf clubs. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. It's just that I have an issue with it being only associated with those. Of course, there's so many positive aspects to all these different kinds of communities, but it really, like both Christian and Anita and Nick, what you were saying as well, it really depends on us to deliver those kinds of projects that give the true utility, to give the value to these kinds of things and the dignity it deserves, in order for people to wake up to it, to say, hey, hold on a minute, there's something really, really interesting going on here. And if I may self-promote a little bit of a project that what we're doing, and Anita is also a part of, is because of Dr. Marwan, who's the CEO of the Dubai Blockchain Center. We've been putting together this project where we transformed his own personal Tesla into an art car. And it's not legal to do in Dubai unless if you have this new special art car license that Dr. Marwan kind of organized through all of his contacts. So normal people or even special people can only now have a car that has about 4 colors and some basic shapes. Now through us, what you can have is any kind of car, put it through our licensing, buy an artwork from me, put it through the licensing and attach that artwork onto the car, and then have it as an artwork on your wall as well, or many other items. We're selling the IP of that artwork to become a part of your identity as you kind of evolve with it. And then what happens naturally is that first people see the car, they go, oh, look, wow, but they associate the value with the car. Then they start to question whether that artwork is now more valuable than the car itself. Then they start to question whether that augmented reality version of that car that we've constructed is more even valuable than the original artwork. What about the access to the game that we're developing in order for other people to be able to, who buy those art cars, to be able to race each other for prize money? And all the kinds of media attention that comes on board with that. If we get Cointelegraph to cover the story and some famous people come and race those cars, and you develop this tornado of value all of a sudden, and no one's going to be able to say easily that that whole chain of events isn't interesting, but it also leads as an education, because again, you're first looking at a boring object that is an everyday object that starts to take you on a journey through these different assets for you to arrive at these different kinds of speculative questions of what is the point of value and access and where and how. All of a sudden you're in the metaverse and you thought you were just looking at a Tesla. And these are the kinds of things that once they really become more popular than what has been the sort of first run of NFTs, I don't believe that NFTs are dead. And Anita's project, and I'm also an advisor for Syntopia, just proved it's sold out on crypto.com in a market that no one is meant to be selling any NFTs. So they did the marketing right, and they did the product right. They did all these kinds of things. NFTs are going to have a second run and a third run and a fourth run. And it's going to keep maturing as a technology because it's not going to go anywhere. And I struggle with this thing, as what you're saying, Christian, that to call it a new name now and all that. To me, it's NFTs. I just personally, because I utilize them in a way, I don't associate it with bad things. But I'm fully aware that it's a bubble to certain people. But we can only do our best in educating people and a lot kind of pointing out the good projects in order for them to go, oh, well, that actually makes sense, so...
Exactly. Thank you so much. Yeah, for people who think that NFTs are dead, there are many projects that they can check in the past 1 month, past 2 months, and you can see crazy sales. I remember the first week of August when I was in Red Bull Oracle office discussing some of the future projects with Bybit. They launched the first NFT of Red Bull on Bybit, 1,000 piece. Sold out in less than 36 hours. So yeah, if you think it's dead, go check it out. So they are not dead, but if media is not pushing it that much, it doesn't mean it's dead. Because, like Bitcoin, how many times we heard that Bitcoin is dead, goodbye, in the past 10 years? How many times? I'm still there. So let's move to Nick. We don't have much time. We have only 14 minutes to finish our panel discussion. Nick, one of the most important part of Metaverse actually gonna be DAOs, because for the first time when I heard about DAOs, and then I said, oh yeah, that's gonna be completely matched with the concept of Metaverse, because all the way of collaboration, human collaboration and decision making, fundamentally gonna get connected through DAOs. Tell us a bit about DAOs and their roles in Metaverse especially.
Sure. So DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization, and it is the Web3 way of creating professional organizations or companies. In a normal company, in a Web2 kind of company, there is a command and control structure where there's a very few people at the top, the CXO levels, etc., and a very few investors who have the largest benefit of the business. The people who actually do most of the work get a paycheck, and maybe they might get a little bit of equity, but they don't share the profits as much as the top folks do. So in a DAO, the Web3 way is more of an ownership culture. It's about making sure that the people who contribute are also getting to see the reward. And the most salient feature of a DAO is that the governance is programmatically baked into what we call smart contracts. So now smart contracts are a misnomer. They're neither smart nor contracts. They're really just applications with some business logic in them. That's basically what it comes down to. So imagine an organization that all the people, they agree that we are going to govern this organization based on some business rules, that are baked into programs. And anyone can, for example, propose a change to the organization, how it operates, what it does, and the others can vote based upon the business rules. And if the vote passes, then the business executes in that direction. So it's a very flexible and new way to do things. Now, with anything new like that, what happens is you try out the experiment. You tend to go out in an extreme way to the far end where you try and make everything democratic, etc. And what people found out is that actually doesn't scale very well. You get into a situation where you have sort of paralysis almost, where if all your decisions are being voted upon, then it's really hard to conduct business, right? So the evolution of it has been newer forms where there is, for example, delegated voting, where people say that, okay, I'm going to delegate my marketing-related decisions to the domain experts in marketing, and the engineering-related decisions to the domain experts in engineering. So that helps move things a little bit. And also then you have mechanisms now that are evolving where not everything is subject to a vote. Only certain critical things are subject to a vote, but then there are certain groups of people or smaller groups of people that are responsible for moving the things forward. One of the key ways in which DAOs sort of decide who gets to vote is by how many tokens they hold. So it's like in Web2, it's how much equity you have the bigger say. That itself is a problem because whales, or people who have large amounts of tokens, can dominate the decision making. So how do you solve that problem? Well, there's many different ways to solve it, but one of the most efficient ways is turning out to be something called quadratic voting. With quadratic voting, what happens is that each vote requires you to have, and I'm going to go into jargon and math here a little bit, just for a little bit. Each additional vote requires you to have a square of the vote number. So, for example, your third vote requires 3 squared tokens, 9 tokens, and so on and so forth. So even if you have a large number of tokens, it still comes down to you still have a small number of votes, and other people can do it. So these are the things happening in DAOs, but ultimately, it's still a work in progress. It's an experiment. The tools are quite new and quite nascent, but what people are finding out is that there are certain business use cases where DAOs are really great, but there are certain ones where DAOs don't do very well. For example, let's take manufacturing, right? If you try and create a manufacturing DAO, it's going to fail miserably right now because there's a whole supply chain and all of that involved. No one has done that experiment yet. But if you want to create a DAO around, say, owning, really expensive and really rare pieces of art, that works great, because then what you can do is have the collective have fractional ownership of a really expensive piece of art, which no single person could afford. It's $1 million piece of art, but the DAO could own it and could decide when to sell it, what new art to buy, etc. So there are some use cases that are very, very interesting. When you combine DAO and Metaverse, you have a whole new dimension there, because now what you have is a virtual representation of a company where it frees people to from the shackles, if you will, of where they are, the local culture, etc. You can be whoever you want to be in the metaverse, and you might be a quiet, shy person in real life, but in the metaverse you could be this boisterous person. Also, it makes things like language differences, etc. Much, and also people have different abilities. It kind of makes it a level playing field. So I think it's very exciting. It's also interesting to see how in the metaverse the concept of a town square is actually a global thing. Like people from all over the world in the metaverse town square may be voting on a decision on what the DAO should do next, etc. So I feel like DAOs are very interesting, but they are early right now, and the people who are experimenting with them are generally crypto natives. But as the tools mature and as the ways to govern mature, I think we're going to see more and more organizations crop up. Let's talk about regulation there. So are DAOs an entity as a C Corp or something like that, right? So in the United States, there's only a couple of states that recognize DAOs as entities, and in Dubai they've just started to do that, I believe. So so it's catch up, but it's really interesting, and it's a great experiment on the evolution of businesses where people have an ownership culture that is done through the blockchain.
Okay, thank you so much. That was a very great introduction. VESA, you want to add something to it?
Yeah, just because I very much resonate with this positive direction forward, and I'm with that myself. But just so there's one thing that comes to mind to add, that we're not only sort of fanboys and ladies of this whole thing, which is that I found also in the art movement of NFTs now and the kind of digital ownership. I was introduced to this concept called the Pareto distribution, which is mathematically a slightly disheartening thing and unlikely a position that any politician would take. But I feel sort of brave enough to take it on, at least as to be aware of concept, is that it seems to be some sort of a law of universe that out of an organization or an enterprise or many kind of things, it's usually 2 people out of 10 that produce the most amount of value in that organization and thing. And we've, for example, I've seen some DAOs where the amount of expertise inside of that DAO hasn't kind of manifested in the field that they're trying to do, and therefore the DAO, even though it's collective wisdom, is not much because there's not 1 or even 2 kind of people leading it that might have that expertise. And what happened inside of the art is that we had this whole movement, and people were saying this WAGMI, like we're all going to make it, and everyone's going to, and this kind of cheerleadership that we had. And in reality, art, for example, and when you get to the sophisticated levels of it, you will find that there's only a certain amount who are educated, only a certain amount who can afford it, a certain amount who will have the risk, a kind of stamina in order to kind of get into that kind of field. And all of a sudden you start to get that, even though we wanted to democratize, then we see that a lot of those people who might be interested simply cannot, for a variety of different circumstances, participate in a way that would be significant for those artists, and especially in that way that they would lead and grow to those positions where they become professionals and they can sustain their lives and families and all that kind of stuff with it. So I'm kind of cautiously optimistic in this kind of way that yes, it will democratize. Yes, it will do fantastic things, and it's already done them. And I've seen those lives transformed, but I've also already seen many of those people who joined with all the WAGMIs, they're nowhere to be seen during the last 2 years anymore. So that kind of balancing is a little bit also important to say to the serious art collectors who will know that not everyone is going to make it. And there are certain aspects and working hard and smart and all those kinds of things that come into the play. And only a certain amount of artists as well who know how to play the financial side of the art game. So, and I'm sure this is true across the board with companies and different ventures that are doing this, is that there's just no around certain things that life requires for us to do in order to be successful.
Okay. While we have you, VESA, let me ask you your final question as well. Do you really think that we have to afraid from AI? Do you think that AI really can damage the real art?
It already has. I mean, it's no longer appropriate for anyone to have anything but superb quality art, because if you're not yet a super professional with your own voice, most people can just type in some algorithm and have the picture that they want on their wall, and it feels like it's even they made it, as opposed to someone else that is a riskier enterprise to commission for someone to do if you just don't buy the art and so forth. So I think the democratization of art in that way has already happened. And is it a good or a bad thing? I'm currently doing a project called Juxtaposers, where I take very famous and controversial figures and I reverse their image and their values and kind of play this game of, are they establishment, anti-establishment, left, right, religious, atheist, all of these kinds of things. And I jumble them up in a kind of comedic and funny way in order to, because the real reason why I wanted to do it is that I see the culture wars and our kind of biases be so crazy now that people are in these potholes that I thought that if I'm going to use machines to create art, then I'm going to use that machine in the true purpose of what it was built for, which is to make people's lives easier. And what I identified now to make people's lives easier is that whether you're in any of that, you might be establishment left or no, wherever you are, I'm going to make fun of all of these people. across the board, in order for all of us to be able to laugh at ourselves a little bit more and realize how many things we have in common and a common enterprise on this kind of spaceship Earth that we're rotating, and the further we are at each other's throats, the less of a chance we will have to make it as a species. And I know we have our differences. I'm not naive about that stuff, but I think there's room for machines to help us take ourselves a little bit less seriously. And this is a project that I'm doing to try and help that venture.
Okay, thank you so much. Christian, we are talking about AI. As the last question, I want to ask you this. To control AI, do we have enough rules and regulations to control that? Or you think we have to create a completely new law for this?
I think we have a lot of rules already when it comes to AI. Do we have the right rules? I assume is the question. And it starts with IP. Like, does anybody own the IP with the data that the AI has been trained on? Or does anybody own the IP for the end result that came out of a generative AI model, platform, application, whatever you would call it? Do we have enough rules and laws? To me, yes. Do we have the right rules? I wouldn't say so, and I'm speaking for the EU part of it. Let me just divert to the question you were answering, VESA, because as an emerging tech evangelist and also advisor, I find the question super interesting. Did AI hurt creativity or art? Because if you break the question back to blockchain, why not, as an artist, document the process of making of your original art and basically put it on the blockchain and watermark the process of making being human? So maybe that would actually bring a different flavor to the pricing of your actual original human artwork, which some people might favor over artificial artwork, while others would say, I love artificial artwork. I'm totally fine with it being way more expensive or way cheaper, maybe even, because everybody can do this. But if you play around with prompts on the different platforms, you see that a prompt is actually individual. Of course, you can copy a prompt, but if you tell somebody, well, this is the result I want to reach, prompt it, and you tell the same to another person, the picture will be different. So it's actually original in its own way. Is it human because the prompt has been created by a human? Well, somehow, but what we understand as human original art, like taking a brush and or painting on bodies, painting on canvas, whatever, the original understanding of art is actually pretty easy to document on the blockchain with you doing this as a watermark. And that actually overcomplicates the question of, do we have enough laws? Because if we take this to the very top, it's very hard to make laws, to make regulation for this. And it's in my opinion, it's an ongoing process. You should start. This is my theory. You should start from a very small portion of laws, which may be behind the actual happenings, but then keep it up, ongoing, and update to what's happening, to scams and NFTs, and to people that basically use AI and pretend to have a human artwork. So it has to be ongoing. It will be ongoing. Lawyers won't be jobless. Well, even if some people say AI will make them jobless, yes, some will be jobless, but AI is not going to take our jobs away. The person that use AI are going to take our jobs away.
Exactly. Thank you so much. That was a very nice finishing. Nick, the last question I have for you is, okay, now we have blockchain, we have crypto, we have NFT, we have Metaverse, we have DAO, AI, gaming industry, all combined together. Is the future, the promised future, something completely different called Web3 is so close, or is it still far to talk about?
No, I think all those different technologies, to some, have different degrees of maturity at this point. Some are still in experimental phase. Some are seeing maturity. I think, though, overall, as I was alluding to earlier, Web3 adoption is still quite small. So while the technologies are maturing rapidly, the user experience has not. So once that is fixed, we'll see broader adoption. Like, look at art, right? The last Renaissance was 400 years ago, and now we have a new art renaissance in the making. But what's different, if it is still the purview of like wealthy people to own art? That doesn't make much sense if you only have 100,000 collectors, each with 20 artworks. What we need is 1 billion people owning one artwork each, and now we've got the party started. And that's what Web3 is going to be about. And so I think we're getting there. I think the world is starting to sit up and take notice that there, especially in countries where, for example, we were talking earlier about, that are unbanked right now. Web3 is changing how things work. In countries where there is oppressive regimes, etc., Web3 is helping. I'll give you a good example. A lot of the artists in my DAO are from Iran. The Islamic Republic blocks them. So what did we do as a DAO? We covertly install a VPN there, and now 3,000 artists can connect to the internet and sell their artwork. So Web3 is doing these kind of things, and it will continue to do things in smaller numbers, which will grow faster and faster and faster. So I think it's not a question of will Web3 happen. We're there. We're in it. It's just it's in the growth phase now.
Okay, thank you so much. Anita, I kept you for the last question of the day.
Uh-oh.
Because I wanted to ask you something very important. Do you have any particular recommendation for the individuals, especially who are about to entering the Metaverse or NFT space? What are the first steps they should take?
Well, I think I listed some of them already in my previous answer. To me, it comes, first of all, it comes down to each and everyone to, like I said, to have the open mind, to be curious enough and brave enough to just take the step and enter, so to speak. Of course, I want to pick up what Nick said here, and that is one of my all-time favorite challenges, and a shout out to all you techies out there. The user interfaces and the user experience with anything Web3 related today is horrible. And there is a granny here talking, and I actually am quite good with my smartphone and my laptop, whatever, but still, that needs to fix. So that is the first step, obviously, that coming, let's say, from us, from our side. But other than that, I think we just really need to engage to the conversation, like Christian referred, and I know VESA has been talking about this for a long time. So reach out to all the business owners, public and private businesses, governmental people, your friends, your acquaintances. Have the conversation and just ensure that people are aware of that there is nothing you can trust today out there. And the only chance we have in the future in hoping to be able to trust in something is if we can remove the human interference and trust in technology. That is what I believe in. And in order to do that, we need just to, have the courage to investigate and to find out and research and develop. And I have to drop in the last thing that I'm crazy excited and curious about, and I'm afraid I will not be around to see and live the true outcome of that, and that is quantum computing. So if we think all of these things we discussed today, AI specifically, if we have not as human beings, as you know, globally fixed the immediate issues with how we're gonna rule all of this, as all of us, as a global DAO of us human beings here, when the quantum computing jumps in, we are doomed. That's what I see. And that's the only part where I think it's good I'm no longer here to see it. No, I'm kidding. But seriously, quantum computing will change so much. So I believe that we need to, in the right kind of seriously, understand that there is no turning back. This is the way forward. It's good, it's bright, it's fairer, it's better. But we need to make sure that that doesn't change, even though the technology develops further. So yeah, but this is cool and this is amazing, and I've enjoyed the conversation so much, especially having you, Christian and Nick and VESA here to listen. It's been an amazing 1 hour again, and I've learned so much. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. What an incredible journey through the frontier of Web3, the Metaverse, the NFT we had today. On behalf of everyone here, I would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to our panelists for sharing their unparalleled insight and expertise. As we step back into our traditional world, let's not forget the paradigm shift we are witnessing. It's up to each and every one of us, as Anita mentioned, to educate ourselves, engage in this transformative discussion, and play an active role in shaping this new frontier. Remember, the future is not something that happens to us. It's something we make it. So all of us together for a brighter future. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.